It really began for me with Christian Ruff's photograph, which was presented as an artwork where he made an intervention of bars that draw your attention to where he was in the landscape to take that, and where we are in the landscape, even here. There's generally a tremendous complacency in Alice Springs about the base. It's out of sight, out of mind most of the time. We're so used to it. I hadn't delved into it. I'd never written anything of any length and hadn't thought a great deal. Like a lot of locals, I was, obeyed the local etiquette of not talking about the war. You meet Americans and you don't ask them about what they do in town, and the protests come and go, nothing changes. The government is unresponsive to any demands to talk about it. Meanwhile, the law around it has become more draconian and now is being applied, and it's definitely had a chilling effect on trespass. The Christian groups, they're the only known incursions in the 21st century, whereas in the 20th century there were hundreds of people doing as much as they did. 5 peace activists came in from the north. I think their walk was 5 to 6 kilometres. Paul, who walked on his own, it was a much longer walk. He basically walked right through the night and spent several hours on the base before detection. The 5 just went over the cattle fence and were arrested almost immediately. So they were going up a hill that is very close to the inner fence around the operations area. They were going up this hill and were basically halted on the hill. So most of them had got to the top. They could see the base when they were arrested. They were praying, they were playing music, and the police were closing in all around them. Christian came onto the base and got as close as they did, but not in that same location, a very good clear view of the base. He was undetected, waited for the right time as the sun is below the horizon to take his shot, and then he was out of there. They are people who devote themselves entirely to, the work of their conscience and it is it's a politics as well, but to the service of people in need and to agitate nonviolent direct action for peace, against war, against violence really. They were praying as they came onto the base, praying for the dead of war, in particular those who are living under drone attack. There's an arrival out of nowhere of these unmanned machines that unleash bombs on unsuspecting people. They were arguing that they were acting to prevent an impending emergency. Basically, all of the evidence that the Pilgrims brought before the court, the jury was told eventually they had to discount it because the judge ruled that they hadn't provided evidence sufficient to justify the defences that they were arguing. All of the defence around what Pine Gap is actually doing, its lethal consequences in the world. They were just asked to decide on, did they trespass? It's against the law. Yeah, guilty. The act was written, you know, during the Cold War, and it's written in that kind of atmosphere, and I imagine that the people that they had in mind were saboteurs and spies. These people are far from that. They're incredibly principled, humble, warm, engaging, funny, committed, generous people. Yeah, not ratbags. Not fanatical. Something that really impressed me about them is their enjoyment of one another's company, of their opportunities, their playfulness, their readiness to make a joke, be friendly with everybody, including their prosecutors, the AFP, who were providing the evidence against them. I guess what got me really going, apart from being interested in them as people, was to see the Australian government essentially prosecuting these people and saying that they are a threat to national security. It was just laughable to hear the Crown prosecutor calling for them to serve real time in jail for these offences which were a threat to national security. I mean, it undermines your respect for the law, it really does, but it alarms me and many people about where Australia is going in relation to the expression of dissent, but also in allowing any kind of open conversation about very serious questions that Australians should be involved in having a dialogue about. Like, you know, what is our relationship with the United States? Are we going to continue to follow the United States into these wars, unjust wars, and these covert military operations and say nothing about them? I am hoping to put before the public to pose these questions around what is our responsibility hosting this space here on our soil.